Thanks to the supporters of channel member Matt Roberts. Well, this is probably a series-defining transfer window. We've qualified for Europe for the first time. We have got a big pile of money to spend. If we get this window right, this could conceivably be the club that we win the Champions League with. If we get this wrong, I'll probably be looking for a new job by Christmas. Hello and welcome to Club 2, part 30 of Non-League to Legend. I'm Kevin. Coming up on today's episode, we have our season review and transfer special at the end of the, certainly the best season in the modern era for Preston North End. A sixth place finish in the Premier League. We did miss out on the Champions League, but we did qualify for the Europa League. Presumably this is the first time. I have a look through the history of the football club and all of the competition wins and things that are in the history of Preston all happened long before European competition was a thing. So presumably this is a first ever European qualification for Preston. I'm sure someone down in the comments section will let me know if that's not the case. The Anglo-Italian Cup and stuff like that absolutely doesn't count. But I know I normally start these off with the actual season review thing that the game does, but before we get to that, I just wanted to show you we've actually had a nice little set of awards come in as well. Ignacio Reyes has won English Players Young Player of the Year. So young striker doing good stuff. We also have a young midfielder doing good stuff. Gabriel Sartori won the Premier League goal of the season, and a defender doing good stuff because De Klerk made it into the Premier League team of the year, which is no mean feat. When you look at the quality of players that are in that team of the year, and Darwin Núñez is there as well, to have De Klerk in there is pretty impressive stuff. That is some good company for him to be keeping. I don't think he's in the media 11. But Declan Rice is in there at centre-back. So it surely can't be long until De Klerk is actually making it in. I mean, he's quite a way down. We've actually got Watson higher up on this list than De Klerk. It's all very interesting, but we have mega money to spend. I think we found a system that suits our best player. We discovered he was our best player towards the end of the season. We now have a system that suits him and some work that needs to be done to get the squad set up in place to run this system. Because obviously we have been set up for the 4-3-3 for the last several years, which means we are absolutely overloaded with central midfielders. We have absolutely loads of them, but not so many of them can play in this new attacking midfield role that we're going to be using. Obviously, Watson is the one who we've changed the system to fit him into. Reyes is going to play up front because we are very light on strikers. Tamang should be coming back from Celtic, but really we've only got Reyes and Watson as strikers in the first team squad at the moment, and they'll both be starting matches. So we potentially need one more striker. But I look at someone like, even someone like David Antas, who has had a really good first season for us, average rating notwithstanding. But he is a very good young player. He's only 21 years old. But do we need him? Because we've got so many players just like him. We've got Sartori, we've got Rafa, we've got Stevanovic, we've got the youngster Moreno coming through behind Antas. If we look on the left wing, we've got Rojas, we've got Marin, we've got Sartori, we've got Stevanovic who can play there. Where does Antas ever get game time in this team? You look at the central midfielders, and again, you look at someone like, Sean Longstaff is an obvious one that we need to move on, but someone like Juan has been a key player for us for a year, 2 years. How long has Juan been here? 1 year. He's been fantastic at the base of the midfield for the 1 year he's been here. But if we're not playing with a defensive midfielder anymore, do we need him? Or do we move him on? What is the future of our central midfield? Frangolo. If we're playing with a ball-winning midfielder, Frangolo is apparently the best one we've got, according to this. If we switch that up and make that a deep-line playmaker, which I guess is more of a way to let Juan into the team, if we just adjust that again, Juan then moves up the list. Frangolo moves massively down the list. We've got to decide how we're actually going to do it. Am I finally going to break the Miles rule of not being allowed to play two playmakers when they're operating in completely different parts of the pitch? You'd have Juan back here, Watson up here. Are we even going to try the asymmetric system that we experimented with at the end of last season? There's so many ifs and buts. Like I say, got to get this window right. Are we having a season review before I hit continue? I don't think we are. So let's hit continue one more time And now we'll cut to a season review. I don't know why it's not just coming straight in. It usually comes straight in, literally, as I press stop. It appeared. So we have our season review, starting with the new signings from last summer, if my mouse is working. No, now we've gone to fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. There we go. So, signings from last season. Jim Watson, signing of the season. We did discover what we had right towards the end of the year, but even before then, 21 starts and 20 goal contributions playing as a striker. There is certainly something very special about Jim Watson, and it is worth rearranging the entire squad to try and draw that little bit of special out of him, I think. Extra special note for Juan as well, who's been excellent. Calvin Ramsey has been much better than expected, regularly starting at right back for us, even though he was very much brought in to be a backup. And I think the youngsters like Marin, Rojas, Antas, I know we've just talked about him, these guys are going to become more and more important as time goes on. We were supposed to avoid relegation and we finished 6th. That is a big thumbs up. We've absolutely maxed out attendances at our stadium. I do wonder if maybe the board will be looking to expand the stadium, because I think we need that. If we're now a European club, we need a bigger stadium. We're absolutely filling this one at the moment in what was supposed to be a relegation battle. Financially, things aren't quite as snazzy looking as they were the previous year, but obviously this is all now going to improve because we're now in Europe. So things like broadcast revenue, prize money is all going to take a massive jump this coming season. And of course, it's all pretty high anyway, because we're now second season in the Premier League and money is pretty much the least of our worries. I am interested to see that Sartori sells more shirts than anybody. I would have put my money on Reyes or de Klerk. They're both in the top 5. But Sartori clearly very highly thought of by our fans. And this is our team of the year, obviously still playing the 4-3-3. And it does look like a very solid system. But like I say, the key thing there is Jim Watson is supposedly our best player. And he just doesn't fit in this system. He wasn't really getting the job done as a striker. And Reyes is definitely better and well suited to that role. We couldn't really get him working here or here. So if we're going to get the best out of him as supposedly our best player, we have to change some things. So it's a risk. It is definitely a risk. But Blanco and goal, I mean, these are all very young players. I think Ramsey and White are the only 2 over 25. But Blanco in goal, back four of Oscar, Valente, de Klerk, Ramsey, Juan at the base of the midfield, White and Scott ahead of him, Sartori on the left, Ross on the right, Reyes up front. The other thing we have to be aware of looking at that is how few homegrown players we've got as well, which is an issue we're probably going to have to address this summer. Reyes got Fans Player of the Year. Walters Young Player of the Year, even though he's now too old to win it. Signing of the season, as we know, is Watson, and Sartori with the goal of the season. Top scorer, Reyes with 19. Most assists, Watson with 8. That'll be so much more this coming season, playing in a different role. And Reyes also got highest average rating as well. Finley Burns is our record ever transfer received at 12 million. I suspect that's going to be a record that we break this season as well. Did I mention that de Klerk won European Golden Boy? I don't know if I mentioned it at the time. De Klerk won European Golden Boy. He really is something very, very special. But the other thing that we were talking about there is homegrown at club. Well, homegrown at club, we have nobody. Literally nobody. We've got Sartori, no, not Sartori, Valente and Blanco both become homegrown at club next summer. So they become unsellable players that we have to build this squad around because we need that. And we're probably going to need to bring in a couple more 18-year-olds who'll eventually become homegrown at club as well, because you need 4 in a European squad, and we are nowhere near that. We're also nowhere near the 8 homegrown in nation players that we need. I think we're going to have to prioritise this a little bit this summer, because if you have a look at who we've got here, players that are likely to leave, Sean Longstaff, Josh Clark, probably both likely to leave this summer, which then leaves us with 5 homegrown in nation players. We need to focus on young English players this summer, which is going to be interesting. I'm not sure how many we're going to be able to get. 55 million seems like a lot of money until you're starting to chase English wonder kids who are notoriously very expensive. But I don't think there's anything else of note on here. We've massively increased our social media following this summer, which, as everyone knows, is really the measure of success in life, how big your social media following is. So very happy with that. The board want us to finish mid-table this coming season, which should be achievable. Bear in mind, of course, we are in Europe for the first time, so that is going to make the league a little bit harder we're going to be playing far more matches this coming season than we have been doing previously. So let's not be... I know there'll be some people in the comments expecting us to push on and qualify for the Champions League in this coming year. I am not expecting that. And if we were to do that, which we won't, it could lead to disaster anyway because we don't have the homegrown players. I think this is a year where we focus on freshening up even further, young players, English players, mid-table finish, quarterfinal of the Europa League. Everybody's happy. I'm happy with that anyway. We'll go to the USA for our pre-season tour, and I think we'll just wait and see what's out there, I guess. Start looking for some youngsters. Get the scouts out doing their business and see what we can find. I know I've said this before, and you usually then check the length of the episode and you realise something went wrong. But I actually think we could probably just get a couple of signings in relatively early if we find the right players in the right position and be done in 5 minutes or so. What do you reckon? 5 minutes from here and we're done? Easy. Well, the transfer window is now open and we have acted early. Sean Longstaff has moved out for £3.7 million. It's a profit on a guy who is 31 years old and barely played for us last year. Football transfers are weird. We've also acted very fast to bring new players in. Ryan McGuinness, not sure. He's a right back. We needed a right back. It was the one area we were still a little bit weak. Importantly as well, he's homegrown in nation, having come through the youth system at Manchester City. He played 13 games for City last year as they, I think, did they win the Premier League last year? They did win the Premier League last year. So he's got a Premier League winners medal. 13 games should be enough. There you go. Premier League and FA Cup winners medals last season at 22 years old. He is the highest paid player at the club by miles. He's a current Northern Irish international, but he is our best right back and like I say, it's a position we needed to strengthen. He's also our best central midfielder. But my intention is to use him at right back. So he's in. We've also got Carlos Eduardo, who can probably play anywhere in these three positions. I've brought him in mainly to be a ball-winning midfielder option in central midfield because we didn't really have one. Frangolo is actually one of the players who's moving out, and he was the only one who could really do that job. He was previously been at Valencia in Spain, where he played a full season in La Liga last year, but he's also equally adept at playing centre-back and could even find himself getting games at left-back to the point where we are also moving Oscar on, because we might be playing Eduardo at left-back, and even if we don't, we've got Rojas, we've got Valente, we've got Marin, who can all play left-back. So between the four of them, we'll figure out who our first-choice left-back is. I suspect Eduardo is a midfielder. That's where I think I'm going to be using him, as that ball-winning midfielder and central midfielder. If we're sacrificing a holding midfield player, I think having him in there kicking people is going to be important, but I can also see a future where he ends up playing at left-back or even centre-back for us. Nice flexibility, £15 million for him. And then we've got ourselves a rotation striker as well. Manu Mancia. He's come in from Middlesbrough, where he got 15 goals in the Championship last year, 14 in the year before. We've activated his release clause at £21 million. He's not as good as Reyes, but Watson's going to be playing attacking midfield. Obviously, we've got Tamang, who's coming back from Celtic as well. But I think having three strikers, Reyes, Mancia, and Tamang, rotating into that one position, especially with Tamang being so young and completely unproven in the Premier League, is probably a good thing. Pacey strikers with good finishing as well. They always work quite well in Football Manager, in my experience. We did also have the option of signing Dennis Simon, the German goalkeeper, who I know from my stream save earlier in the year was just developed into the best goalkeeper in the world relatively quickly. We had a deal arranged with him at 23 million, but he wanted like £130,000 a week to come in, and I can't guarantee he'd come straight into the team ahead of Blanco. So we've kind of pulled out of that one for now. I think having £130,000 a week backup goalkeeper is extravagant, and Blanco hasn't done anything to deserve being dropped. He's our highest value player. So for now, we're not going in for Simon again, although Stuttgart, where he is, are trying to make me. They've come back in and offered him to us again. There's confirmation that Magenis is now our record signing and also most expensive Northern Irish player in history. They are some big offers for Russell Ross. I have absolutely no interest in selling him, but it is interesting to see that a player that we brought in for £12.5 million, we could now sell for £40 million. Also interesting to show as well, Frangolo, I mentioned he's leaving. We signed him for £1.9 million last summer. It's not really worked out for him. He never really got in the team at centre-back, played most of his games in central midfield or out at right-back. We've got better options in all those positions. We've strengthened those positions as well. He joins Club Bruges for £24 million for a player we got last summer for £1.9 million. That's some good transfer business. Also, Filip Stevanovic is joining Ajax for £7.25 million, slightly less than we paid for him last summer. He started well, but then we brought in Rojas and Marin, and we just don't need him. We've got so many wingers. We mentioned we'd have to trim that area of the squad. So Stevanovic is on his way out as well, and Oscar should be on his way to Sheffield United. At 21 years old and with limited potential to improve, I just feel like he's a player who, although we used a lot this year, we've now brought in Eduardo, we've brought in the other two young fullbacks as well. Towards the second half of the season, we were just using him less. He was always being substituted or coming off the bench or not playing at all. And I think we can live without Oscar. I just think cash in on him now because he's not ever going to get any better. And if we need to go and get a proper left back, we'll go and get a proper left back, because there's still money to spend. There's still 26 million. We could go and get Simon if we wanted to as our goalkeeper. I don't really want to. What I am thinking is we probably still need to carry on trimming the squad in certain areas. If we just get that shuffled around again, we could still use a backup goalkeeper because Josh Clark wants to leave. So a backup goalkeeper is a priority. This is what I mean about left back and why we don't really need Oscar. We've got Rojas, we've got Marin, we've got Eduardo. Calvin Ramsey's either-footed and can play there as well. Rule Walters can play there. Valenti can play there. We've got so many left-back options. I just don't see Oscar getting game time going forward. At right-back, obviously, we've got Magenis as the new guy. Calvin Ramsey was great there last year as well. So we've got options there. At centre-back, with Frangolo now leaving, we are back down to 4 centre-backs again, to Clerc, Valenti, Eduardo, and Jovic, and Eduardo might not be playing there. So maybe one more centre-back wouldn't be the worst thing. That one more centre-back might be Simon Darlington. There has been discussion in the comments section before about this guy's future potentially being at centre-back. He's played a season at right-back for Sheffield United as they've been promoted from the Championship. But maybe Darlington can just draft back into that first-team squad and act as centre-back cover for us. It probably wouldn't be the worst thing he could possibly do. But this is the area we probably still need to trim some fat. To be fair, the likes of Moreno, he's going to become homegrown at club eventually. He's got 5-star potential. We just kind of want to keep him around. So we probably have to prioritise him. I've already highlighted Antas as someone who could potentially move on. He's very similar to Sartori. I don't know that we need both. Andre Santos is on the transfer list. I want rid of him. He was a panic buy that we never really used. I think we can probably move him on. But Carrasco and Braddock both come back from their loans. See, this is probably the argument. We maybe do need Antas. Although, to be fair, Rojas, Sartori and Marin would be fine on the left wing. Maybe we don't need Antas. And then up front, we've got Reyes, Mancia, Tamang as the 3. We're unlikely to play Ross there. We're unlikely to play Rojas there. Watson is now going to make this position his own, where Reyes is not going to play. Sartori and Antas, this is where I guess they're more likely to play. Rafa's probably centre mid, as is Scott, but Braddock, Antas, Moreno can all play in this role as well. We've got, it is a bloated squad. Bearing in mind, I'm still looking to bring players in. There's 29 players in that first team squad. Some of them are youngsters, but there's certainly still 4 or 5 who probably need to move on. Santos is definitely one of the 4 or 5. We need to identify who the other 3 or 4 are. It might be that some of them are loans, like Braddock could maybe go out on loan again. And even Tamang, I've not ruled out Tamang going back out on loan. He is back from Celtic now, where he has had a successful loan, 6 goals in 9 appearances, won the Scottish Cup. But he can't become homegrown at club. He's already homegrown in England. Is he better served this season going back to Celtic or an equivalent level club, hammering in 25 goals and then coming back to us as a superstar? rather than being our third choice striker. So there's stuff we can do. I'm happy with this as a start, for sure. So we have made it through to the 1st of July. There's your confirmation of the sales that have taken place. Frangolo, Oscar, and Stevanovic have all moved on. And Russ Eddy, one of the Name in the Game channel members, has moved to Charlton on a free transfer as well to see what he can continue getting up to for the rest of his career. We have accepted a loan offer from Celtic for Tamang to take him on loan again for another season, give him a full season there this time. So if Tamang were to leave as well, that brings us down to a squad of 25 with all the ins and outs having gone through, which probably makes sense, a squad of 25. We do still have a big pile of cash to play with. I'm not entirely sure we need to play with it, though, because looking at the squad depth that we've got, we are pretty well set in every position. We could maybe use one more defender. And if Tamang's going to go, we could maybe use another striker, but they're probably not going to play a lot. And Sunjic is on loan for another season? No, Sunjic is supposed to be coming back today. So Sunjic could just be that emergency striker if we need an emergency striker. And likewise, so could Russell Ross. So there are options. So I'm not desperate to do anything. We almost signed James Ward-Prowse. He was available for a 34-year-old James Ward-Prowse was available for £2 million from Leicester, but he chose to go to Newcastle instead. We've turned down some big offers. Turned down 20 million for Harvey White from Wolves. Oh, hold on. Is there a Danny Hudson sell-on that we can have? Oh, yeah. See, his career hasn't necessarily gone the way that he might have hoped, I guess. I mean, we could potentially bring him back to be an emergency striker. Is he homegrown at club? He wasn't here long enough. He is homegrown at club. I don't really know how, but that is interesting because him being homegrown at club could really help with European registration. Star rating wise, he's as good as Stevanovic was last season. So he's not going to come in and do anything spectacular. But as that third striker, squad filler option, as a homegrown at club player, he's probably the best homegrown at Preston player in the universe. Which does make him an attractive option. Well, Tamang has decided that Celtic are beneath him and is going to stay and fight for his place, which is very interesting. Yes, we don't need an emergency additional striker now. Is he ever going to become homegrown at club? No, I don't understand how it works. The new Jeff Hurst, boys and girls. The new Jeff Hurst. Probably need to throw some support around this guy, don't we? Breaking news. Board not interested. Why can't I speak? I'm so flabbergasted I can't speak. Breaking news. Board not interested in expanding stadium. Despite having loads of money, being in Europe and selling literally every single ticket available for the last year. Lack of ambition. Yeah, I know. This guy's not English. He's not homegrown. He doesn't really fit the profile of what we were looking for this summer. However, he is a natural defensive midfielder who can naturally play as a defensive central midfielder. I think we need more of these in the squad. Therefore, we've brought this guy in, Tijan Sana. He is actually the best DM we've got, even though we're not going to be using a DM. But when it comes to central midfield, if we look at the options that we've got in him, McGuinness is going to be playing right back. Scott is a box-to-box midfielder. So he's really competing with Harvey White and Eduardo, probably, for that. Oh, I mean, White really is more of a box-to-box as well. Eduardo is obviously the midfield crunching option. Sana's another option in there. Juan, if he learns to play central midfield, is an option. And we have got Ezequiel Carrasco back in the squad now as well, who we signed way back when we were in the Championship, sent out on loan second half of last season. He had a very successful loan at Osasuna in La Liga, and another one who is homegrown at club. So we need to reintegrate him back into the squad. We've done the same with Simon Darlington. They're both on new longer contracts, or Carrasco is. I don't think we've given Darlington a contract yet. But with those boys back in, how do I show homegrown? There we go. We can actually have a few more homegrown players in the squad now. So we've got Darlington is classed as homegrown at club. I don't know why Carrasco isn't, even though he is on the other screen. This is breaking my brain. It says there that Carrasco is. It says here that Carrasco is not. For the purposes of Europa League, is he or is he not? He's not. I don't understand. I don't understand. Oh, my word. I know it's because we loaned him out, but I figured we'd got away with it because it showed on there that it does make me cross. I mean, if Danny Hudson's homegrown at club, why is Carrasco not? Carrasco actually did 2.5 years and then 6 months out on loan and is now back. That screams homegrown at club to me. But even with that being the case, it's less of an issue than it was before. And because we've got Darlington who's homegrown at club, we've then got these. How many players have we got here? This is 9 players who are homegrown in Nation. And then we've got Valente and Blanco become homegrown at club next summer. The summer after Moreno does. So combining that with the number of players under 21 who've been here at least 2 years, which Blanco falls into that criteria, Valente falls into that criteria. They might be the only 2, you know. Either way, I think we shouldn't have any problems doing a Europa League squad. In fact, shall we do a mock Europa League squad? There we go. De Klerk falls into the under 21 category. So De Klerk doesn't need to be registered. Neither does Sartori. Neither does Carrasco. Or is that Carrasco just not being... That is annoying that Carrasco's not going to be registered. Can we put him in? No. So Carrasco is going to be the guy who misses out. Tamang is also not going to be in, even though he's homegrown, because he's not homegrown at club. So there are a couple of guys who are going to miss out. I mean, we could put Darlington in and it makes no difference because he's homegrown at club. So we probably... I mean, why is Monty Pullman in? We can take him out. Put Darlington in. Does that mean we can now get Tamang in? No. I don't know if there's a way we can get Tamang into this squad. It feels like we probably should, unless we're going to loan him out. There's probably still a player or 2 that needs to go, aren't there? We need to be able to get Carrasco and Tamang in. So if we've got to get Carrasco and Tamang in, we need to look in positions where we're bloated for players, i.e. these ones. Who are the targets? Marin's a wonder kid. We've got to keep him around. Braddock, I would argue, probably doesn't need to be in at this stage. We can put Carrasco in for him, and that's fine. And then regarding Tamang, I don't know. Does Rojas need to be in? Could we take Rojas out and put Tamang in? There's stuff, we can figure it out. We might still loan Tamang out yet. We probably need to get rid of a midfielder now we've brought that guy in. Who are we going to get rid of in midfield? Let's have a little look. So he's come in to play in this role. We've already decided we're done with the guy we signed last summer, Santos. He's done. He's moved down into the under 21s and on my forbidden to look at list. I mean, Carrasco, I guess, is the one. Maybe we loan Carrasco out again. Maybe he's not ready. He has just signed a new contract, but maybe we loan him out again and get some more game time into him if he's not going to be in our European squad. I'll have a ponder. Well, we've got a little bit of a goalkeeper situation. Josh Clark has been on the transfer list all summer at his own request. He wants to leave, although actually, right now, he's no longer on the transfer list. But he did insist on discussing terms with Newcastle. So he's agreed a deal with Newcastle. All good. We've got about this much transfer budget left. We originally, when we accepted the offer for Clark, had 8 million left. But the game has decided to reshuffle it around amongst wage budget and transfer budget. Probably because of what I went and did. And what I went and did was agreed a transfer for Dennis Simon, who we were looking at earlier in the summer, £7.5 million up front for a £35 million total fee. £84,000 a week is a lot less than what he was asking for the previous time. He would want to come in as star player, first choice goalkeeper. And when you compare him to Blanco, it is a coin flip about which one of these two guys is going to play. Simon has the advantage that he's 6'4" compared to 6 foot for Blanco. He's also 23 compared to 20 for Blanco. He plays for Germany rather than playing for Uruguay, which I guess is a positive. And if you have a look at their reports, I mean, they're very similar. Blanco probably just about edges it, but they are two of the best young goalkeepers in the world. The only problem is, because the board shuffled my budgets around, we can no longer afford Simon. We don't have £7.5 million. We have £5 million. I've tried to interact with the board. They're not having it. I've tried to move this around. They are not having it. We cannot get the transfer for Simon over the line without selling both Clark and at least one other player. Looking through the squad, if we shuffle the squad around and sort them according to who's got the lowest star ratings, the one that would go, I guess it would either be Harvey White, Calvin Ramsey, Alex Scott, Raul Walters. Because if we have a look at what we've got in those positions, at right back, we could probably let Walters go because we've got either Ramsey or Walters could go because the other one would be staying, and we've got McGuinness, who's going to be our starter. So they're kind of both here to be backup for us. The only problem is Raul Walters is probably not as good as Ramsey, and he's the one we've just given a new contract to this summer, so we can't get rid of him. If we get rid of Ramsey, he was our starting right back last year, and is probably still edging Walters now. And then, of course, there's the question mark, does anyone want Calvin Ramsey? We haven't even explored that yet. The other position where we could probably spare a body is in central midfield, where it would likely be Scott or White, because everyone else here is packed full of potential. We don't want to let the likes of Antas or Sartori or the new boy Sana, Braddock, we don't want any of these guys leaving. But Harvey White's been one of our best players for years. We have turned down a big offer for him this summer, though, so we know we could probably sell him. He got 15 goal contributions last year and was arguably our best player. And Alex Scott is probably the best box-to-box midfielder we've got. So the question now becomes, do we want to get rid of one of those players to bring in Simon to have him sit on the bench, probably, because Blanco's probably better than him? Or do we want to do option B, which is Jordan Pickford, who is a short-term solution? He's 35 years old now. He's been playing for Lyon for the last 4 years in France, but he costs less than £5 million to bring in. We can afford him, and his salary is much lower as well, so we can double afford him with bells on. So we can bring in Pickford and not have to sell anybody, or we bring in Simon and have to move somebody on. And I can't decide what to do. Logic dictates you probably let Raul Walters leave, but he's probably the one we can't get rid of. I don't know that I want to get rid of Ramsey. And I really don't want to get rid of White or Scott. Although Harvey White, 7th choice on that side of midfield, 4th choice on that side of midfield. But then I suppose, I mean, both of these, if you say Eduardo's going to play centre-back or left-back, McGuinness is going to play right-back, Juan won't play as the box-to-box. I guess you've got Rafa, but Sartori won't play there, Ramsey won't play there. And then you've got these boys. So Scott and White are our two best box-to-box midfield players. It's Ramsey, isn't it? If we get rid of anyone, it can only be Calvin Ramsey. Because if we get rid of everyone who's not going to play in these positions, I mean, all of them are right backs who could play. I mean, Darlington and Bologna are probably not ready to play yet, both at 20 years old, both lots of potential. We're unlikely to play them anytime soon. But Jovic played there a lot last year. Do we need 3 senior right backs plus 3 young up and coming ones? We obviously don't, but the best one is the only one we can get shot of, who also provides cover at left back for us as well. Do we need him at left back? Less so, probably. Let's put the feelers out. Let's see if anyone wants Calvin. I'm not going to transfer list him. Let's just see if we get any bites for Calvin Ramsey. One way or the other, we've got to sell Josh Clark, so he's gone. Which means we only have Blanco now. But am I setting myself up for trouble by bringing in Simon, who'll expect to start and maybe won't, because Blanco is probably better than him? Again, we go back here. Blanco's the better shot stopper. He's got the better distribution, but Simon's better in the air, better physically. Simon's also better communication, better mentally, but Simon's also much more eccentric. So, I mean, Blanco having a 1 for eccentricity is huge for a goalkeeper. They're both natural sweeper keepers. They're both 3.5 stars of current ability. They're both great. They're both Premier League starting goalkeepers. We don't need them both. But there are some serious slim pickings. If we look at what goalkeepers are available, I mean, Kevin Kelleher, for example, would cost more than either of them, which seems bonkers. Martinez is not as good as either. He's older than Pickford, and we can't afford him. There's a lot of players. I mean, you're looking at the likes of Sam Johnston, who's retiring. He retires at the end of the season. He'd be a short-term one similar to Pickford. Or players who are going to cost just as much as Simon. For the money that we're spending, if we're going to have to spend 25, 30 million anyway, it seems bonkers not to get this guy. I just don't know what to do. Well, I think we've just taken the biggest risk of the entire save. We sold Calvin Ramsey. We got just under £20 million for him. And we've brought in Dennis Simon. He's the most expensive player in the history of the football club for what is initially a backup goalkeeper. It seems bonkers, but he's so good. He is everything I would want in a goalkeeper. And I can't help but think that we're surely not far away from the likes of Real Madrid coming in and just taking Blanco off of us. It feels like continuation planning. Our big danger spot for the entire squad is we get to deadline day and someone takes Blanco away. And at least now we've got his ready-made replacement. If it doesn't happen and one of them ends up getting unhappy, then so be it. We'll sell one of them. Look at the values of these two players. We'll just sell one of them if it all goes wrong and go back to the Jordan Pickford style plan if we have to as an emergency backup to whichever one of them is left at the club. The other thing that selling Ramsey is allowing us to do is add one more player to the squad. And I'm hoping that one more player is going to be Andrew Robertson. Homegrown player, bags of experience, strengthens us in our weakest position. He's still been playing regularly for Liverpool last season. And I think just from an experience perspective, he'd be a massive addition to the squad. So fingers crossed we can get him in and over the line as well. But it is the first day of the new season. So as it stands, this is the team that will be starting on the first day. Jim Watson, after rebuilding the entire team around him, picked up an injury towards the end of pre-season and isn't fit to play. And Rafa, who would normally be his first deputy, is also recovering from an injury. So it's not quite the attacking midfield 3 I would have expected to go for, but I still think that is a pretty strong-looking squad. And to have the likes of Simon, Juan, Mancia, Tamang, Marin, Harvey White, to have these kind of guys on the bench, I think we've got a deep enough squad to do well in both the league and in Europe this coming year. And the thing I've just got to remember to do is play Simon in every cup game. Play him in Europe, play him in the Moose Cup, the FA Cup. Blanco can play the league games. And if Simon starts to get upset, just swap them for a bit and start playing Simon in all the league games and Blanco in everything else. And I've just got to try and be smart and keep them both happy until one of them gets taken off us by a bigger club. It might be a terrible plan, but I've never done anything quite like that before. So let's see how it works out, shall we? And we will find out in tomorrow's episode. I think I showed you every other player leaving the club. There were a couple of little transfers that I might not have mentioned as they were happening. Moreno's gone out on loan to Huddersfield for the season. Carrasco's gone to Celtic on loan for the season. We sold a few fringe players for £1 million here and there, the likes of this guy who came in on a free transfer a few years ago. We've done a little bit of this, bringing him in, selling him on at a profit. There's been a few examples of that. But on the whole, a pretty good summer as far as I'm concerned. We've spent, 65? We've spent about 115 million. We've brought in 69 there. And was there any towards the end of last season? About £75 million has come in. We've spent about 115. So what's that? A net spend of like 40 million when we had a £50 million budget. It might look like a bonkers summer, but it's actually not too bonkers for me. Apart from right at the end with the goalkeeper thing, which I'm already second guessing and wondering if we'd have just been better off with Jordan Pickford sitting on the bench, behaving himself. But It might be the greatest move I ever made. Who knows? We'll find out tomorrow, maybe. If you enjoyed that, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on there for me. Subscribe to the channel for daily Football Manager videos. And thank you very much for watching.